Salvē, Mika, and welcome. Today we're going to be taking a look at John chapter 4, verses 48 through 50. But first, last time in John chapter 4. Here is our rubric, everything that we look for as we go through the text. Let's get started. Dixit ergo Jesus ad eum, nisi signa et prodigia videritis non creditis. Dicit ad eum regulus, Domine, descende prius quam moriatur filius meus. Dicit ei Jesus, vade filius tuus vivit. Credidit homo sermoni, quem dixit ei Jesus et ibat. And there we go. Our very first word is a verb, which is nice. We've seen dixit enough times that I'm not going to bother parsing it. Jesus, we already should know as our subject for the verb, because the us. Ad eum as our prepositional phrase plus the accusative from is, ea, id. This is going to be the singular masculine form. Nisi has to start in a different clause, so that ends our prepositional phrase here. Jesus is taking this as his indirect object, which is, I don't think it's as common a thing in Latin as it is in Greek, but this is the same form that the Greek uses, so it makes sense to put it here. If you recall, the eum is referring back to the noble, the chieftain from the previous page. Nisi introduces a conditional clause, so we'll need to take a look at the verbs to determine what type of conditional clause. Signa has to be a noun. Prodigia, that's another noun. And here we have our verb videritis. E-R-I-T-I-S is either going to be a future perfect indicative ending or is going to be a perfect active subjunctive ending. With nisi, we can have the future perfect, but that's not normal. Instead, the perfect subjunctive makes the more sense here, and this would make it some sort of future conditional, or would it? Now that entirely depends on the second half of the clause. So come back to this one in a moment. Looking ahead, we've got creditis, credo, credere, credidi. So the reduplication would make it a perfect stem. There is no reduplication, so instead we have a present verb here with a normal ending of the third conjugation verb. So that's second person plural, present, active, and there is no change of vowels here, so that's going to be indicative. So we've got, I think, as is always the case with me, I never look up the Latin conditionals. I just run from memory. Memory's always wrong. Not always, but I think what we've got going on here is a perfect tense would need to be paired with another perfect tense. Since this isn't a perfect tense, maybe I'm incorrect and not reading this as a future perfect. But one way of telling is to say it out loud, what it would be in English. So let's go ahead and parse these. This is going to be an accusative, plural, signum, signi. Yeah, because the a, so it has to be neuter. With very few exceptions. Prodigia with another a, that's going to be another accusative, plural, neuter. Signum, of course, means what it looks like. Sign. Prodigia, that can mean a prophetic sign. Not sure how that's different. Mean portents, which I think is the one that I'm actually going to go for. So, unless signs and portents you will have seen, you do not believe. Except when we have a future conditional, the present can be rendered in English in the future. So in that case, it would be, unless signs and portents you will have seen, you will not believe. If we were to put it as the perfect subjunctive, if signs and portents you may not see, no, it would be might not see, you do not believe. And I think either of them could work. This is where I really should have gone and looked it up. But little time, who knows when my voice will wear out. I don't know. Let me go check. Okay. So I did the legwork that I should have done before and took a look at it. And it looks like we actually have a mixed, either future more vivid or future less vivid conditional. A future more vivid conditional in Latin at least, which is a little bit different from the Greek, which is usually what my brain goes to. consists of two future indicatives in either side of the conditional, the protasis and the apodosis. And a future less vivid consists of two present subjunctives in either one. Well, we have a possible future subjunctive here, and then we've got a present indicative, so it doesn't fit either of them. But we do have the present tense, do have what could be a future tense. If we put it into the past, then it becomes a contrary, in which case Jesus would be saying, unless signs importance, you. So put it more clearly, if you do not see signs importance, which you have, you will believe. And they have seen signs importance, but they haven't seen the signs importance that they're looking for. So I don't think Jesus is being sarcastic. I think he's being very truthfully frustrated. So a contrary to fact, I don't think makes sense. So I'm going to go with the future perfect. Could be wrong. Feel free to disagree. There we have it. I've added the will into the second half of the conditional to keep with the future condition of it. Dicit, we don't need to parse that. We've seen it enough times before. Ad eum, we've got that same construction as here, so I'm simply going to pull it down. Regulus, we've already seen previously. That's our nominative, singular, masculine, and we translated as chieftain previously. I've got domine here with the E. It's going to be our vocative, singular, masculine form dominus. It's just a direct address. Descende, we've got another E right there. This is going to be from descendo, descendere, a third conjugation. Since this is the stem plus the connecting vowel, this is going to be our present imperative, second singular. And then prius quam is going to be acting as, well, it is telling us the time. What I'm trying to remember is it functioning, is it a conjunction or is it an adverb? In the Greek, we have a conjunction, which I previously, I think every single time, incorrectly called it an adverb. But I think in this case we do have a adverbial function because we got prius, firster, quam, than, or firster which, with our am right there. That's normally going to be an adverbial ending for neuter, or, well, sometimes also apparently feminine words, like primum. Primum's a neuter, though. I think this is the quam for than, not the quam from qui, quod, quod. Anyway, I'm going to mark it as adverb. All these things I don't look up. Moriatur, tur, as our personal ending for a third person singular. This is from morior, moriiri. I think it's, no, morior, morieri. So we've got a third IO deponent, so which means since we have this A right here, we've actually got the subjunctive, but it's off of the present stem. And subjunctive with prius quam makes some sense since he's talking about a potentiality in time. Filius, US right there, don't need to parse it. Meus, modifying filius as a possession. And then in verse 50, don't need to parse that. A from is, ed, this is going to be our dative singular. Interesting note that we had ad eum beforehand, and now we have a right here, which is how I would normally expect a address with the verb of speaking to occur. Jesus, we don't need to parse. Beginning of speech right here. Wade from wado. What is a wadeo? I don't remember if this one is a second or a third, but suffice it to say that it is a second singular present imperative. Yeah, that's not how you spell imperative. There we go. This one can mean come up, go, do it, all sorts of things. It's like kapla in Klingon, or it's like Cree and whatever the language of the Jaffa are. So, pretty simple word there. Filius, don't need to parse that. Tuus, owning filius. Wewit, it, wewo, wewere, we. So this could either be the present stem, or it could be the perfect stem. And that would all depend on whether or not that I is long. And since we don't know just from what the Latin says, we have to go to the Greek. Well, the Greek has zeta eta sub iota, which is a present stem. So then I'm going to assume that Weebit is also a present stem. Should probably write that down. Doesn't have a circumflex, though. I think it would have a circumflex. Question mark over that. So Weebit, two options, third singular present. And then credited is going to start a new clause. So let's go ahead and translate this. Credited it right there for our third person singular. We've got this reduplication which we lacked earlier. And that's going to be the perfect stem, active, and indicative. And it's going to take a dative as the object. Homo is the wrong form. Instead, that's going to be our nominative singular masculine, homo hominis. But sermoni, with that I right there, is going to be our dative singular sermo, sermonem. This is masculine as the object of credited. But then we're going to stop before we get to quem. Sermo, I think I've had trouble previously figuring out how to translate this, because we get the word sermon from it. So it can be saying, it can be speech, it can just be word. But we've got verbum already for word. But then John uses, the Latin translation of John uses verbum to refer to Jesus himself. So it does make sense to use sermo when it is not in direct reference to Jesus, except it could be in direct reference to Jesus. So the Latin here might be acting inadequately. It could be that John is just recording what Jesus said is what this guy believed in, or it could be that instead John's trying to say, hey guys, yes, this guy's believing Jesus' words, but he's also believing Jesus himself. In the Greek, we have lego, legoi, technically, omicron sub iota for another dative. Well, anyway, there are my thoughts on it. Man believed. I'm going to go with saying. Quem from qui quite cold, referring back to dative singular masculine, except this case it is an accusative singular masculine as the direct object of dixit, which we don't need to parse, we've seen before. We've got another AE, which is very interesting, which I'll get to in a minute. Jesus as our subject, don't need to parse that. And then we got a new clause with ibat, which is itself third singular imperfect tense, active, and indicative from eo, the verb to go. And this is going to have our regulus as its subject. We've got Jesus already as the subject here. All right, so that last note that I want to talk about before setting you free is AE versus ad eum, ad eum. This is a direct translation of how the Greek version of the text handles things. We've got pros auton, which is a not unusual way for the Greeks to have the indirect object of a verb of speaking. But later it's got the autoi, which is the equivalent to ae here. And what that creates is a sort of chiastic structure. And what a chiasm is you've got a step ladder down of material, parallels on either side, either of subject matter, events, or of words. When it's words, it's a different word for it. But I was never very good at the poetic words. Anyway, we've got that going on right here. Dixit ad eum, dicit ad eum, dicit a, dixit a. Step down, perfect tense, unusual in Latin. Present tense, unusual in Latin. Then present tense, usual in Latin. Perfect tense, unusual in Latin. Usual in Latin. There's an interesting construction here in just these three verses, tying them very, very closely together. And there's got to be a reason why John is slipping back and forth between these perfects and these present tenses, as he does also in the Greek. And I don't know what it is. We would call these present historics. But if we've got present historics, we don't need perfects. These perfects are already in the past. If we're going to use perfects, we should use perfects. If we're going to use present historics, we should use present historics. So when he's doing it, there's got to be some reason. And maybe it's a shock emotion, a shock thing to keep us involved, keep us looking at the text. Like, why is he doing this? To pay more attention. I don't know. Well, there's that. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope taking a look at this has been helpful for you, and sorry for never, ever, ever being as prepared as Table Talk Radio. Farewell.